She laughed at his dirty apron, thinking he was beneath her. But just minutes later, she looked at him with shock in her eyes and said words no one in that room expected. This is a story about dignity, respect, and the kind of courage that doesn't come from money or fancy titles, but from heart. It's about a janitor who turned humiliation into triumph, and a CEO who learned one of the hardest lessons of her life. So grab your seat, because the moment you think you know how this ends, you don't. The stage is set. Imagine the belly of a ship, massive, echoing, smelling of oil and steel. The ship wasn't just any vessel. It was the pride of a billion-dollar company. Its sleek decks carried luxury clients. Its name carried reputation, and its engine was supposed to be flawless. But on this day, that engine coughed, wheezed, and finally died. The ship, docked in the city port, became a ticking bomb of embarrassment. Every second it sat dead cost the company thousands. Clients demanded answers. Executives looked pale. The CEO herself, known for her sharp tongue and iron will, was fuming. Her name was Evelyn Hart. She wore a crisp white blouse, diamond earrings that glinted under the fluorescent lights, and an expression that could cut steel. Around her stood a group of board members and engineers, all equally stressed. And off to the side, sweeping, wiping, unseen, was the janitor. His name, Daniel Brooks, a man in his 40s, sleeves rolled up, apron stained with grease. The kind of man people usually ignored when he walked into a room. The mockery. Evelyn slammed her hand on the railing. Millions of dollars in technology, and not one of you can fix this? She barked. The engineers shifted nervously. No one dared to speak. That's when her eyes fell on Daniel, still quietly mopping a corner. Something about his apron, stained, wrinkled old, triggered her anger even more. She smirked and said, half joking, half cruel, "Hey you, if you can fix this engine, I'll marry you." The boardroom erupted in laughter, deep mocking laughter. Men in suits slapped each other on the back, shaking their heads at the absurdity. A janitor fix a multi-million-dollar ship engine? Impossible. Daniel froze. For a second he thought about ignoring it, about swallowing the insult the way he always had. But something in her tone, the arrogance, the dismissal, lit a fire in him. He set his mop aside, straightened his shoulders, and said firmly, "I can help." Silence in the room. The laughter died. Heads turned. All eyes were on him now, not with respect, but with disbelief. The CEO raised her eyebrows. "You?" "Yes," Daniel said calmly. "I know this engine. Let me try." The engineers chuckled under their breath. One of them muttered, "This should be good." But Daniel didn't flinch. He walked straight to the massive machine, his footsteps echoing like drumbeats in the silence. What nobody knew was that Daniel wasn't just a janitor. Years ago, he had studied mechanical engineering. He was brilliant, passionate, but life had other plans. His father's illness forced him to drop out and take whatever job he could find. Cleaning ships wasn't his dream, but it kept food on the table for his younger siblings. And though life labeled him janitor, his mind never stopped being an engineer. Every day, as he swept floors, he studied the machines. He listened to the engines, memorized their rhythms, the clicks, the whispers. While others ignored the heart of the ship, he knew its every beat. Daniel stepped up to the engine. It was monstrous, steel pipes twisting like veins, bolts the size of fists, valves hissing with trapped steam. The air smelled of burning oil. He placed his hand on the engine casing, like a doctor feeling a patient's pulse. "This isn't a full failure," he murmured. "It's choking." The engineers scoffed. "What would you know?" One sneered. Daniel ignored them. He reached for his old, worn-out wrench, the same tool he'd carried in his apron pocket for years. He crouched low, inspecting the pressure valves. He tightened one, loosened another. The engine hissed angrily, then quieted. Next, he adjusted the fuel line, tracing it carefully with his fingers. He muttered softly, as if speaking to the machine. Every move he made looked small, but together they were like notes in a symphony. The engineers had missed it because they were too focused on their charts and screens. Daniel saw it because he had spent years paying attention. Sweat dripped down his brow. His hands moved fast, precise, sure. The room leaned in closer. Minutes passed. The tension grew thick. Evelyn tapped her foot impatiently, arms crossed. And then Daniel turned the final bolt. He stepped back. "Try it now," he said. The awakening. An engineer reluctantly pressed the ignition. At first, silence. Then get a cough, a spark, a rumble, and suddenly the engine roared back to life. Louder, stronger, smoother than it had in months. The floor vibrated. The lights flickered from the surge of power. The executives gasped. One actually dropped his clipboard. Another whispered, "That's impossible." Evelyn's jaw dropped. She stared at the janitor, speechless. The room erupted in noise. Not laughter this time, but applause. Engineers clapped reluctantly, board members cheered. Even the skeptical executives looked at Daniel with awe. And Evelyn? She walked toward him slowly, her heels clicking on the metal floor. She stopped just inches away. Her voice, soft but trembling, said, "Then I'll marry you now." The room chuckled again. But this laughter was different, filled with admiration, not mockery. Daniel wiped his hands on his apron, meeting her gaze. "I don't need your marriage," he said evenly. "Just respect." And that single line hit harder than the roar of the engine. What happened that day traveled far beyond the shipyard. Workers told the story like folklore. A janitor who fixed what the engineers couldn't. A CEO who learned that respect isn't tied to titles, money, or spotless clothes. Daniel went back to his duties, mop in hand. But from that day forward, nobody called him just a janitor. They called him the man who saved the ship. And Evelyn? Her arrogance softened. She never mocked someone's work uniform again. She learned that sometimes the greatest talent hides in the most unexpected places. So here's the truth. Don't ever underestimate people. Don't laugh at someone because of the dirt on their apron, or the calluses on their hands. Because you might just find that the very person you dismissed is the one who saves you. And if you thought this story was powerful, wait until you see the next one popping up on your screen. It'll shock you even more.